Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, June 2nd. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Another day, another protest, and another claim of police brutality, this time on a local grandmother. The 59-year-old woman shot in the head with a rubber bullet during the La Mesa protest is now out of her coma, but it's unclear if she will recover from her injuries. Video of the incident sparked outrage as it circulated social media on Saturday evening. Leslie Furcron's family say she was protesting peacefully when an officer shot her in the head with a rubber bullet. Her two sons and her attorney said at a press conference today that she is in intensive care.
Right now, Ms. Furcon is still in ICU. She's intubated. She can't speak. She actually is awakened from a medically induced coma, which is a positive sign, but we don't know yet whether or not she's going to make a full recovery, whether or not she's going to keep her eye, so we're still just waiting.
Pride and the Furcron family are demanding that the police officer who shot the rubber bullet be identified and be charged with attempted murder. A GoFundMe page for Furcron has so far raised almost $90,000. Civil rights groups have been calling for an end to the use of the carotid neck restraint hold for years, and now San Diego Police Chief Dave Nislight says the tactic will no longer be used by San Diego police. But as KPBS reporter John Carroll tells us, not all law enforcement departments agree with the change.
When police officers are dealing with someone who's resisting arrest, they have a variety of methods they can use, short of lethal force, to get control over that person. One of those methods they've used for years is called the carotid restraint. Anna Casimir from Krav Maga Academy of San Diego demonstrated it for KPBS. When done correctly, an officer compresses a person's carotid arteries, which are on either side of the neck,
until it cuts the blood supply off to his brain, eventually rendering him unconscious.
Again, when done properly, it causes a person to lose consciousness.
We're warning and encouraging the city to take us seriously when it comes to banning all neck restraints in San Diego.
The Racial Justice Coalition San Diego has been calling for a ban on the carotid hold since 2017, following the death of Eric Garner at the hands of police in New York City. They renewed that call in this virtual news conference last Friday. On Monday, Mayor Kevin Faulkner and San Diego Police Chief Dave Nislight announced that the San Diego Police Department would immediately stop using the hold.
But then when you look at what occurred in Minneapolis, and you've got to listen to the community, and that's one of the things that I will say and proudly say about the San Diego Police Department is we do listen to our communities. And I heard the community loud and clear, and that's why I think it's time. And so effective immediately, I put out to all my members that we are stopping the use of the carotid restraint.
I'm reluctant and opposed to taking away a less lethal force option.
San Diego Sheriff Bill Gore disagrees with Chief Nislight and the mayor. Gore says deputies in his department have used the carotid restraint dozens of times over the last several years with no major injuries. He says banning its use is a bad idea.
So I'm reluctant to take that technique away from my deputies and force them into maybe a higher use of force, which will cause lasting damage to the suspect we're taking into custody.
Nislight also faces opposition from some in the rank and file. Detective Jack Schaefer, who heads up the San Diego Police Officers Association, says he's used the carotid hold and he's seen his fellow officers use it for years with no major injuries. But Schaefer also says the SDPOA supports the chief, and he says San Diego officers will adapt.
We're going to support our officers, and I know that our officers are going to be able to figure out a way to still diffuse situations by using other techniques.
The change in policy was met with praise from the local NAACP, along with most members of the San Diego City Council. John Carroll, KPBS News.
We've seen many protests in cities across the county, most ending peacefully. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman at the scene of a demonstration right now in downtown. Can you give us a sense of how things look today, Matt?
Go. Maya, we are down here at Waterfront Park right now. Now, this protest, it started in Balboa Park. It was earlier today. I want to show you, though, it's been growing, as you can see, just in front of the right now. It's actually very quiet. I don't know
And I apologize for those technical problems. We'll try to go back to Matt a little bit later in the show. But the city of Santee is extending its curfew order for the third night in a row. The curfew starts at 7 o'clock tonight and will last until 6 o'clock tomorrow. And it comes after 2 people were arrested last night after deputies say they flashed a gun at protesters. It happened near the busy intersection of Cuyamaca and Mission Gorge Road. Witnesses say a woman inside the truck pointed the gun at them. She and a male driver were then arrested. A child was also in the truck. The couple faces charges of child endangerment and exhibiting a firearm. The state of Minnesota has filed a human rights complaint against the Minneapolis Police Department in the death of George Floyd. The governor says it's only the beginning.
This effort is only one of many steps to come in our efforts to restore trust within those communities who have been unseen, unheard, and believe that those that are charged to serve and protect not only don't do that, they work against them.
And this comes as demonstrators across the country have demanded for change. But after tensions between protesters and police flared, President Trump is threatening to deploy active duty troops. Nadia Romero has more.
For 7 straight nights, this has become common across the country. Tear gas fills the sky, scattering protesters. The unrest comes after the death of George Floyd at the hands of Minneapolis police. Demonstrators marched to honor his memory and to protest generations of racial injustice. But while the vast majority of protests have been peaceful, agitators in many cities looted businesses and set fires. In the midst of the chaos, police officers have been injured and more than 18,000 National Guard troops activated. President Trump warns if the violence doesn't stop, he will invoke more military might.
And I will deploy the United States military and quickly solve the problem.
As America's streets seethe, President Trump attempts to focus on religion. He visited a national shrine Tuesday and a church near the White House on Monday, but not before peaceful protesters were cleared from his path with tear gas.
This was a charade that in some ways was meant to bolster a message that does nothing to calm the soul and to reassure the nation that we can recover from this moment.
To help the healing, memorial services honoring George Floyd are planned in Houston, his hometown, and in Minneapolis, the site of his death.
In Minneapolis, Nadia Romero, KPBS News.
San Diego County health officials are watching for a possible jump in COVID-19 cases following days of protests. Today, they reported 7 more people died from the virus, bringing the total number of deaths to 276. And 120 new cases were also reported with an average 3% positive test rate. Today, the County Board of Supervisors voted to seek further local control of reopening. KPBS health reporter Taryn Mento has the latest.
The request put forth by Supervisor Jim Desmond calls to open gyms, pools, hotels, youth sports, and a range of other businesses. San Diego has already asked to be a testing ground for opening higher-risk workplaces earlier than the state, but the governor has not responded. Supervisor Diane Jacob voted in favor of asking for more entities to operate because she says earlier stages of reopening haven't resulted in a surge in cases.
Watching what San Diegans have done in responding to doing what they should be doing, and our numbers indicate that. San Diegans have demonstrated that they know what to do.
But Jacob was concerned that two major hospital systems were opposed to those earlier reopening stages due to a higher COVID case volume in the South Bay. The supervisors also called on the county's public health officer to open beach parking lots and lift any remaining restrictions on activities. Supervisor Nathan Fletcher was the lone no vote. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
The city of San Diego has extended its eviction moratorium through June, and now the county is doing the same. County supervisors voted unanimously today to extend its ban on evictions through June 30th. The moratorium applies to residents and small businesses, and the action only covers properties in unincorporated areas. San Diego City Council members are voting today on the creation of a rental relief fund for tenants and landlords who hurt financially by the coronavirus pandemic. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says funds would come from the federal stimulus dollars.
Councilmember Chris Ward held a press conference before the council meeting, urging his colleagues to support the Rental Relief Fund. San Diego has received more than $260 million from the CARES Act. Mayor Kevin Faulconer has proposed using most of it for the police and fire departments, the homeless shelter at the convention center, and a small business relief fund. Ward says struggling tenants deserve a share of the funds, too.
We've heard from frontline homelessness experts and service providers that are worried we will see huge spikes in homelessness because families can't cover rental payments when the eviction moratorium is lifted.
The proposal has the support of property owners, too. Todd Henderson is an independent landlord and board member of the Southern California Rental Housing Association.
And this proposal will help property owners to continue to make mortgage payments, pay their plumbers, roofers, and painters, and continue to provide the necessary upkeep associated with quality rental housing here in San Diego.
The exact amount of funding for the program will have to be decided when the council approves a budget next week. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Sunbathing is back at beaches across San Diego County, and it looked much more like the kind of beach day we're used to seeing at Mission Beach. Families bringing their chairs and umbrellas to relax in the sunshine. Social distancing and facial coverings rules still apply when you're near people who are not a part of your household. Beachgoers we talked to were happy with the relaxed rules that started today.
It's long overdue.
Very much needed.
Do you guys get nervous at all about it, or?
No.
No, I mean, as long as we stay 6 feet, I think we should be good.
I'd rather be outside on the beach than stuck in a restaurant or a store. So I think this is great.
And you still cannot play team sports like beach volleyball on the sand. Also, beach parking lots and piers still remain closed. Reopening of boardwalks is up to each coastal city. And if you live in the inland valleys or deserts, a beach day probably sounds really nice right about now. Tomorrow could be the hottest day yet. Mark Mancuso has your forecast.
Temperatures continue to rise right through Thursday, and it does look like Wednesday into Thursday, some dangerous heat in the area, but along the coast, we'll start to see the cooling coming in Thursday, and that will continue to spread inland on Friday, and that cooling trend, an upper low moves through, and that'll give us some gusty winds and maybe even a little bit of light rain for some, so there's a lot of change on the way. Excessive heat watches are being issued, excessive heat warnings for the desert. So here we go with the dangerous conditions. The same pattern is with us, slow moving upper low, and we have the heat building here in the interior of the southwest. Take a look at our temperatures tonight. It will be in the 50s oceanside, mid 60s in San Diego, some clouds possible. And then as we go into the interior sections, well, you'll see a low of 63, El Cajon, Ramona 57, Borrego Springs, warm night tonight, 79 degrees. Tomorrow, it's hot. Borrego Springs, 110, 91 in Ramona, 91 in Campo. El Cajon's at 92. We'll be in the 70s, San Diego, up towards Oceanside. Then the upper low starts to get closer, so that'll bring some cooling to the coast, but still really hot in the desert areas. And we'll show you that upper low here. Here it comes on Thursday. Friday right overhead, that's when we could see a little touch of rain for some. That lifts north, but as it does so, another trough kind of digs in right behind it, so no signs of any warm-ups over the weekend. So looking ahead here, we'll see our temperatures start to drop off Thursday into Friday. Some clouds around too. Is there going to be a sprinkle for some Friday? Perhaps. And then as we look inland, we'll see clouds and sun and warm, but then Friday into the weekend, it'll be cooler. In the mountains, you can see temperatures drop into the 60s here, low 60s Friday and Saturday. And in the desert, it's really hot until Friday, and then we'll see a break in the heat. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
And we've seen many protests in cities across the county, and they've been mostly ending peacefully. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman is at the scene of a demonstration right now in downtown. Matt, can you tell us kind of what you're seeing out there?
Maya, yeah, protests over the death of George Floyd are continuing here in the city of San Diego. I want to show you behind us here. Protesters have gathered once again outside of the San Diego County Administration Building. Now, just a few minutes ago, I believe they were holding a moment of silence over the death of George Floyd. And as you can hear now, cheering over there. A lot of people here in the downtown area, not as many people though as we saw over the weekend, and it has been entirely peaceful. This whole thing from the beginning of the day. I want to show you some video from earlier today. Now, you might hear some noise here. People, hundreds of people taking to the streets this afternoon, a peaceful march starting at the entrance to Balboa Park off of 6th Avenue, down to Market Street. They went past City College and back through the park. Now, San Diego police yesterday said that they welcome people expressing their First Amendment right, but just want to make sure that no destruction of property happens. Now, this march was organized by young people, and they made a point to remind everyone that, hey, this is a peaceful protest. Pick up any trash you drop. It was also a very hot day, so they wanted to make sure that people had enough water to drink. Everyone I talked to out there today said that they live in the city of San Diego or elsewhere in the county, many saying that they want to see these police practices reformed to stop in-custody deaths.
What's going on has to do with changing the system. Giving cops a way to protect us without injuring us, without hurting us, without killing us. And also showing them, hey, when it does happen, we're not going to stand for it.
They're supporting because it's a good cause. It's something that's been going on, and it's just bringing more attention, and hopefully it will create some action.
I think it's brave of these young people who are coming together to organize, because at the end of the day, we're the ones who have to live here.
I'm out here voting essentially, right? Where I know it's not November, but I'm making my voice very clear and very loud.
Now, I want to reiterate that this was a peaceful march out here, a very peaceful protest. A lot of young people, and we saw not just black people out here, but whites, Latinos, Pacific Islander, all coming together, wanting to see real change and having their voices heard. As we come back out here live, we're near Waterfront Park outside the San Diego County Administration Building, where hundreds of people are coming together. They were giving some speeches earlier in Balboa Park. Some people are angry, some people upset over the death of George Floyd, wanting reform, even here in the city of San Diego. Now, organizers of the rally that we showed you earlier, they say that they are very proud of everybody. There was no violence or anything like that, but when the sun comes down, it gets a little more out of control for police in terms of them trying to keep track of people here, though. I will say that many people that we've talked to out here, they say that they've been protesting the last couple of days, going back to Saturday in La Mesa, Sunday here downtown again, and they say they will keep protesting. Maya here down at the waterfront. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Thanks for that report, Matt. Stay safe. The Black immigrant community in San Diego has been under intense stress over these last few weeks. As protests continue over the abuse of Black people by police, the flagging economy has led the White House to propose even further restrictions on immigration. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler hosted a virtual roundtable with 3 Black men from immigrant communities to hear their thoughts on a trying time.
George Floyd! George Floyd! What's his name? George Floyd!
We asked about what was different or not different about the video of George Floyd's death from other acts of police brutality and why it led to such widespread protests.
For me, it felt like a public execution. You know, it's really dehumanizing in a way that it shows how much you are nothing. You are less. You can do nothing, you know.
I think Black folks in this country are tired of being told how to go about dismantling their own oppression. And I think this was their way of letting America know enough is enough.
Officer's demeanor when he had that knee on the gentleman's neck was, you know, like he just did not care. It was so nonchalant. He had his hands in his pockets. Like, I feel like that just outraged so many people. It just sent the message that this man's life doesn't even matter.
We asked about the demands of protesters this week.
We want to see the defunding of police departments. It is ridiculous that during this climate of our country, mayors like San Diego's mayor, Kevin Faulconer, are asking the city council to increase the budget by $20+ million for San Diego Police Department. That's just utterly just crazy and ridiculous that we're spending more on policing than anything else in this city.
We have law enforcement always come into our communities saying that, you know, they want to build connection, they want to build bridges. Well, how can law enforcement possibly do that?
We asked about the duality of being both Black in America and an immigrant.
This is the issue of skin color. So before even a police hears my accent or knows where I'm from, he sees my color. And once he sees my color, I'm profiled. Once he sees my color, I'm targeted. And that's the problem of a day-to-day struggle of African immigrants, even refugees living in this country. And this is really has double level of paranoia and being paranoid and scaredness and hopelessness.
My mom said it best, like when she was living, back in Somalia, like she didn't have to worry about, her brothers or her cousins leaving the house and have to think about their death or them possibly dying, even though they were living during a time where people were being senselessly murdered for whatever reason. But today, every day I leave the house, every day my brothers leave the house, every day my dad leaves the house, and we have to say we love each other. We have to say this might be our last goodbye.
We asked about how white people can support immigrant and Black communities.
This entire time, all we've been doing was having, dialogue with no action behind it. People need to actually come and confront these biases, confront racism.
They should be on the front lines. They should be the people in the front who are locking their arms up and protecting the Black and other POC protesters who are there. If you cannot attend the protest, that's fine. If you cannot financially contribute, that's fine. But what you can do for the movement is read a book. You can read an article. You can have discussions with your family members.
If you'd like to see more from this virtual roundtable, you can visit kpbs.org. Social distancing and home isolation have been hard on us all, but this time can really take its toll on teens and their mental health. Mandy Gaither has more.
Drive-by diplomas, virtual proms. It's been a year like no other for teens, and for some, that can be hard on mental health.
We're seeing an increase in depression, especially for teenagers.
At Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, Dr. Sarah Lazarus says she's seen a rise in intentional ingestions in the emergency room. Parents of teens especially need to be vigilant, be on the lookout for any warning signs of depression.
I know no one wants to seek medical care right now because they're nervous and they don't want to get sick, but our mental health is really important too, and it's important that if you're noticing warning signs that your kids go ahead and seek help. It can just be complete withdrawal, so they may just not want to be with you, and that can also be a sign. Appetite changes are another big one that may be more obvious.
Check in with your kids regularly and maintain an open dialogue about their feelings and experiences. If you're concerned about your child's emotional wellness, ask for help.
If your child, no matter what the age is expressing thoughts about hurting himself or not wanting to live or wanting to hurt others, that's really a really big red flag in our world, and that there needs to be medical care sought.
For today's Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
And experts say parents should ask their teen how they are feeling and actively listen, acknowledge their feelings, and let them know it's okay to feel them. If your teen doesn't feel like talking, you can suggest journaling or other creative outlets.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, a moment of crisis. Protests and clashes with police intensify in cities across the country. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
So take a look at this moment between protesters and police in downtown Los Angeles today. Video shows a few protesters hugging officers. It happened as the crowd took a knee on the street. Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti also kneeled in solidarity with protesters today. Similar scenes have played out at events across the country. New York City's police chief took a knee with one protester who asked him to kneel for peace. It happened yesterday in Manhattan's Washington Square Park. The chief asked protesters to throw out anyone who starts any violence. An update now on our top stories. La Mesa is enforcing another curfew starting at 7 o'clock tonight and ending at 5:30 tomorrow morning. There haven't been protests in the city today, but demonstrations continued in downtown San Diego and also in Balboa Park. The demonstrations come as Mayor Kevin Faulconer and San Diego Police Chief David Nislight encouraged San Diegans to participate in emergency public meetings this week to discuss potential policy changes and bolster police-community relations. And the San Diego police chief says his department will no longer use the carotid restraint hold, but other local law enforcement agencies are raising concerns about that. San Diego Sheriff Bill Gore says deputies in his department have used the technique dozens of times over the last several years with no major injuries. He says banning its use could force deputies into a higher use of force that could do more damage. And following a weekend with no reported deaths from COVID-19, county health officials announced 7 more people have died from the virus. 120 new cases were also confirmed. During today's meeting, the Board of Supervisors voted to take further steps to be allowed to reopen facilities such as gyms and hotels. They are writing a letter to Governor Gavin Newsom seeking for more leeway to allow reopening of wineries, breweries, theme parks, swimming pools, and youth sports facilities. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.